Hello again, this is Tom Sorcy talking about some more Storm bowling balls. Today we are going to look at the Timeless, a new release brought together between the Storm R&D guys, Jason Belmonte. Very interesting ball, very different and unique, so there's going to be a lot to talk about, so let's kind of get right going. The R2S hybrid cover stock, you will recognize that from the High Road. Dual drive core, essentially what that is there's a core inside of a core. What exactly that means, I don't have the technological understanding of how these balls are made to know what difference it makes or doesn't. RG numbers 257, 251 for the 16s, which I throw 050, 051. Again, we could go into what exactly those mean. You know, they say that the idea is to have this faster revving core. We'll take a look at what we see in the lanes here shortly. Like I said, it's very unique. There's a lot to talk about. This is mine. It's a 5.5 inch pin, no extra hole. We're still bowling on the Tower of Pisa pattern from the previous video on the Torrent. So we probably have about, I don't know, a game or two bowled on it, maybe 3 at the most. When we started filming here. Let's get right into it because I want to take a look and show you what I've seen and what makes this ball so unique and different. So what I noticed with the Timeless is, first and foremost, it is a quick response ball. You see it right here. It sees friction in the mid lane a little earlier, and it really makes a strong, quick, sharp movement off of it. Chase it a little bit left. There's still a fair amount of friction in this part of the lane because this is basically where I've been playing for the past 2 videos that I shot. And then you see we get it a little left into the flatter part of the pattern, real sharp, jumpy movement, which is a shape that is usable in certain scenarios. There again, that one holds, but it sees that earlier friction and it really tries to make a sharp move off of it. So here's the thing. We have this ball that's showing us quick response, so we need to try to move left. We need to find more oil to make it look good. And you'll see here as I moved left, it really labored a little bit. We still got the little mixer, but it really labored. And then on the following shot, I just get it one right in that oil and it blows by it. So what that is telling me is that this Timeless is best used when there is a relatively high amount of friction on the lane. It just needs a higher level of friction than most of the balls in the line. We're comparing it to the High Road, same cover stock, but again with R2S we see different things with different balls. The High Road here, as you can tell, it's just as quick response. You see on the 3, 6, 9, 10 here, it sees a little early friction. It makes that sharp move, the same thing that the Timeless does. The difference between the two is that when we move into the oil with this High Road, it still wants to pick up without shooting a little too far down the lane. And you'll see that here. We make a little move left. We see it pick up in the right part of the lane. It still has that relatively quick movement, but it doesn't shoot as far down. This one we get a little right, even as we moved into the oil. It still picks up, comes back, and makes that good strike. So now, what I decided to do was I move 8 left. And the reason that I moved 8 left was just to show you that when we get into the oil, when we open our angles up, how much stronger this High Road actually is than the Timeless, which is not a good or a bad thing. It just is what it is. And it's good that they're so different because that means that we have usability options. So right there we get the real late 7, but it still makes that move in the right part of the lane. Once again, right here we get the little mixer. It does the same thing. Then I tried to throw the Timeless that deep. And you see it just pushes a little further down the lane. The oil pushes it a little further down, and in the exact same spot as that High Road, it sucks up and gets the strike. So what are we talking about here? What's the crux of all of this? First, the Timeless needs a little more friction than the High Road. Now, I have a, quote, relatively weak drilling on the Timeless, but I did it on purpose because I've seen it go down the lane enough now that I know how it's a little nichier, how it has a little more unique ball roll than, say, the High Road. So I wanted to kind of capitalize on that and really use it in that spot. So what we know is that it's best used when there's a little more friction on the pattern. But if you get onto a pattern that's relatively flat and it's higher friction, it's not something that you're going to use out of the gate. You need to have a little more blend to it, a little more oil down lane, a little help on the higher friction pattern, because it is still quick response. It still requires relatively more open angles. It just requires more friction than with some of the other quick response balls, like a No Rules Pearl, and to a slightly lesser extent like a High Road. So, to recap, Timeless, low friction, quick response, and unique. Is any of this good or bad? No. What's important is that the Timeless has a ball motion that it's best used. And that particular ball motion is different than basically everything else in the line. So whether or not the idea was to make something so different, and I imagine partly it was, it does something that other balls don't, which is important. Now, from a usability standpoint, I don't get as much use out of this ball as some people. I think that with its low friction factor, that it's more often used by the higher rev rate players than it is by somebody like me, especially in the environments that I bowl in, be it regionals, PBA tournaments, the higher end amateur weekend tournaments. They tend to have a higher volume of oil than most places, so I don't use a lot of very weak balls very often. It's not as versatile as some other balls, especially in its similar response time range, but that's a good thing. So, again, unique. That's important. I'm sure I'm going to get comments about it, so I want to bring it up real quick. R2S hybrid, same as the High Road. Why do they look so different? Are they drilled differently? Yes, they're drilled differently, but I've had plenty of balls with the same cover that don't look the same. The core is a factor, the drilling is a factor, but also they're just different. The colors matter. How much is solid versus how much is pearl in a hybrid type of deal. You have all of these other factors that make these balls different. There's so many little things. And that's why I think it's important to be looking at the shape that we're seeing, at the ball motion that the ball creates, because just when you see the words R2S solid, R2S pearl, R2S hybrid, doesn't really mean that you have that good of an idea of what it's going to do until you see the combination of all of the things that make the ball roll down the lane and see what it does in the oil, and most importantly, when it sees friction. And that's what all of these videos have been about, and that's why I hope that you get something out of them. As usual, you can find me on Facebook, facebook.com/TMSourcy, at Tom Sourcy on Twitter, youtube.com/Tom Sourcy. I hope you guys enjoyed this. I'm sure you will have questions about this one. I will gladly answer them. Let me know. Leave comments. Find me on Facebook. Find me on Twitter. Ask away. That's great. I love doing it. Talk to you guys again soon. Coming up, Surelock, which we're going to be throwing against the Phase 2. You'll see that shortly, and I'm looking forward to it. Thanks.